Hey, welcome back. This is Donna with ABC Cake Decorating. Just finished making our fondant. Wasn't that easy? And it's also fun if you don't mind getting it all kind of ooey gooey. Now what we're going to do is we are going to take the fondant that we've made and we're going to cover our cake board. Our cake board, what size cake board do I need? Just like in the cake journey in the beginning, you always go at least 2 to 4 inches larger, but there's always an exception. On this one here, I want to add an embellishment on the bottom of the cake board, so I do want it larger. My cake that I'm going to be using is a 6-inch cake. The cake board I have is 10 inches, so that's telling me I'm going to have about 3 inches on either side of my cake, unless I want to put my cake back a little bit and put some more embellishment up here. That's the nice part about using fondant. Your creativeness can really come out. One of the things that you need is when you're using a cake board, you want to make sure that this is considered a cake drum because it's basically 4 little tiny pieces of cardboard together. That's what they call a cake board. There's 4 of those together here. If you choose to make one at home, you can actually glue the 4 pieces of cake board together. Just make sure that when you do it, that you move the cardboards, because if you notice, you can bend a cardboard and it'll break. Just kind of alternate them to give them some structure, and then you can tape them together, wrap them with foil. My cake board. One of the things I want to do is glue my fondant to my cake board. So what I want to do is take my piping gel. You could also take corn syrup, reduce it just a little bit with some water to make it a little bit easier to paint on there, because sometimes corn syrup's real sticky. We're going to take this very, very thin coat. One of the things about fondant is if you ice your cake with too much icing, or if you add too much piping gel to your board, it can start to break down the fondant and it can start to tear. Want to make sure that we don't have too much on here. So as I'm doing this, you can see I'm wiping it off also. I'm going to cover this. This is very sticky stuff. If you're not used to using a lot of piping gel, it's very, very sticky. But we want to get a nice thin cover on it. We don't want any high spots on it at all. We also want to make sure we cover the corners of our cake board. And just take and slide, just go around and just pick up the extra. And come around. And just about got it all covered here. Now what I'm going to do, instead of taking this board, because it's kind of sticky, and just setting it right on my counter, I'm just going to take it. Just make sure I got everything here nice and covered. I'm just going to take it and stick it on something that's stable enough so it won't knock it over. And that way there, I don't have to try to pick it up from my... Next, we want to go ahead. This is my 10-inch cake board. So I'm going to go out just a little bit past 10. If you notice these right here, they have numbers. It starts out, this one is a 6-inch, then it goes 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. Lets me have a guide as to how large I need to roll out my fondant. That's a 10-inch board, so I'm going to roll it out just a little bit bigger than 10 inches. One of the things, make sure your area is nice and smooth. There's nothing on your countertop. There's nothing that's in the way of your mat so that you don't end up getting any type of impression or anything. Lightly, we just want to come in and lightly cover this with our shortening. Just want to make sure it's nice and covered. Nothing worse than forgetting to put down your shortening. You roll your fondant out nice and smooth, and then you go to pull it up and it sticks, and it will stick. So you need to use shortening. Nice even coverage. Now we need our fondant. What I'm going to do is, you kind of eyeball it a little bit when it comes to covering your cake board. And this isn't going to take very much because there's not a lot of depth to it. You want to work your fondant, and the fondant you're not using, make sure you cover it up because you don't want it to dry out. You kind of work it until it gets nice and soft. And you always start with your lighter color first. Like I'm going to marble this with yellow and black. I'm going to make sure my white, my baby yellow is nice and soft, and then I'll go to my black. That way there, it doesn't transfer the color. However, we're gonna marble, so it's really not gonna matter anyway. But I've always just start out with your light color and then you won't make a mistake. So I got my light yellow. Now I don't want a lot of black in here because it's so overpowering. But now if I wanted to take this and let's say I wanted to color this gray, the whole thing gray, I could take a little bit of black, add it to this, work it in, and now I have gray. Very rarely can you find a gray color. Usually gray is just a soft black. So if you're looking for gray, just take a little bit of this, add it to here, and you'll get your gray. To marble, I take a couple of these. I'm just gonna make some, I'm not gonna call them worms, the pythons. I'm gonna make some fat pythons here. And then I'm gonna take some black, and it's working it. If it feels a little or it gets a little crusty, just kind of work it. And if the heat of your hands doesn't soften it, then always you can add some more shortening to it to get it to work. We're gonna put this together. Gonna work this. And then what I'm going to do is fold it, and then it depends upon how much marbling you want. If you want really nice thin marbles, or if you want some nice thick marbling going through. The key is just not to over mix it or you're gonna end up with a big blob of gray. So this is what we've got. So this is the marble I'm gonna use for that cake board. I wanna go to a little bit fatter, so I'm gonna use my yellow. And if you don't have these, any type of, and a lot of times they'll even use wooden dowels. Just get 2 wooden dowels, and they come in different thicknesses. And you want about like 1/8 of an inch or so of a thickness. And then you just find the dowels, put them here, and as you roll this out, the dowels will continue to go. When your rolling pin hits the dowels, it'll stop it from going any further, basically with the same things these guys do. So now I'm gonna take this and roll this out. And see this marble? Now, if you're concerned, you shouldn't really pick up your fondant a lot because if you do, it starts to pull and you don't want to tear it. But you may like this side better, and you want to make sure that your surface is nice and smooth is the biggest thing. So, and we're just going to roll this out. And I see my little 10-inch mark. So I'm going to roll this out to my 10 inches. And that's 10 inches there. So we'll come this way and roll it. And that's why it's nice to have something that will kind of give you an idea. If you roll this out and it starts to feel a little dry, just because maybe your air is on or you're in front of your heater, you can always take a little bit of shortening and you can rub it on here. And this will help. Now, remember when I said if you have to leave and go do something, this is where you would take the other mat, put it on top, instead of just leaving it out in the open so it doesn't crack. One of the things you can find when it comes to fondant is you can kind of get what they call an elephant skin because it starts to dry out. You don't want that to happen because it's very difficult to kind of remove that. So we've got our fondant here. Now with this, it's going to be very easy. All I'm going to do is take this, put it upside down, and then I'm going to take my board, lift this up, flip it over, and this is where you hope that you put down enough shortening in there. Then I'm going to take my spatula, come under here to lift this up, put put this back. Now I'm going to go ahead and just smooth this out. Now, if you end up, and you can even hold it as long as you don't have too much, if you rolled it out too big and you find that this is hanging, you want to go ahead and cut off some of it down here because the weight could pull it and it could start to tear it. And then we're just going to kind of come in here and smooth it out. Then we're going to take, you can either take a pizza cutter, you can take a knife, but I find the spatula works just as well. And what we're going to do is just come down at the base and just use that cake drum as a guide and just pull off our fondant. This is all so simple. If you find after, well, let me finish here. If you find that after you've cut all your cake, the cake board, all your fondant off of it, sometimes you can get some air bubbles. And if you get an air bubble, I'm going to show you, a little corsage pin or a T-pin will work to help pull out those air bubbles. So, okay. There's our nice smooth cake board. But I don't see any air bubbles, but if I had an air bubble, like let's say I had one right here, you don't want to go straight on top because you don't want to have a hole in it. But what you do is you go into the side, poke it, and then you just smooth it out, and then you'd lose your air hole or your air bubble. So you just don't, and so this is your cake board covered in fondant. Very, very simple. Now with this, you could save it and you could reuse it for something else, but I'm just going to set it over here. I want to take this up a step. I'll show you how easy this is. Now you'll want to do this while it's still soft because once it starts to form that crust on it, when you start to cut it, it just won't be pretty. If you're not sure where you want your design, and I'm just going to use these and I'll show you right here, and this is where I want them, but if you're going to do some little squiggles or some type of scroll work, you might want to take your cake pan, set it on here to get an idea of where you want. So like if you wanted to do happy birthday, but you don't want to end up doing it right in the center, so you have to offset your cake a little bit, that'll kind of give you a guide as to what you need to do there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of space these out the way I like them. And then I go A, B, C, and then if I wanted to go A, B, C, I could do that. I'm going to lift these up. And these are really nice. This is a really nice set from Wilton. It actually even has this little thing in here. I haven't used it. I just usually use this, but we're going to try it. I just usually use mine. And we're going to take this and lift this out, and we're going to leave that there. And so if you had a real nice little cutter that, like a rose cutter or a cutter, oop, that one came out, or a cutter that had a really nice, like Snoopy. I'm a big Snoopy fan. If you had a Snoopy cutter, you could do that. So we've got that cut out. Now we're going to go ahead and I want to use a different color so that you'll be able to see it. Sometimes I've even done just the impressions to where you just go ahead and just leave the impression put in there. Okay, so let me go ahead and I'll show you how to do this. And then in the second part of the segment, we're going to go ahead and we're going to cover the cake in fondant. So let me take this, roll this out. Now what's nice is that I have them on. I have my little rolling pin guides on, so now I'll know it'll be about the same size. And I'm going to do my A, my B, my C. Pull this up, and I'll show you. You just take the C, and you can just take them and put them in here. There's your C. And the B was giving me a little bit of problems. And you'll just take, and sometimes you just may have to take your time and kind of just play with it and make them fit. Just like in anything, just doesn't always work perfect. And then your A, and you want to punch out the middle. And then there you have your little custom cake board. Getting ready to cover our cakes in fondant. So let me get my stuff together. I want to see you back here real soon. Thank you.